Welcome to another special edition of In the Labs with Todd. If you're like my family, you've got a few special Christmas ornaments that have been passed down from generation to generation, and you worry every time you open up your Christmas boxes that they're going to be in one piece. Well, this year I thought it'd be nice to make a little box that you could store your favorite ornaments in to keep them safe. Now, I wanted to focus a little bit on the Box Creator Gadget that you can use in VCarve Pro or Aspire, but even if you have VCarve Desktop, you can still use these files. Let's have a look and see how I did that.
Let's have a quick look at the files that we provided for this project. So we are going to go ahead and open an existing file. You're going to notice that I'm using VCarve Pro. You can open these files up in VCarve Desktop or Cut2D Desktop. But in order to go ahead and create your box of your own size, you're going to need to have VCarve Pro and then download the Box Creator Gadget. So in lieu of that, I've given you two different files. The one that I actually used to cut the box that you see in the video at the end, and also a generic file that uses a 1/4 inch plywood and a 1/4 inch Endmill. This might be one that's better suited for your needs. So I'm going to open up the box.crv file that I used. And when it opens up, you're going to be presented with some very important notes. Make sure you read and understand those so that nothing bad happens if you try and cut this on your machine. So we're going to click OK. Now this is the end result after I'd actually used the Box Creator Gadget and then customized it for my own needs. If you don't have the Box Creator Gadget yet, let me show you through some fast forward video where to go get that, and then also how to use that gadget. You're going to want to start by going over to Vectric.com, take a look under the Vectric community list, choose gadgets, and then have a look at the gadget library. You're going to try and find the gadget called the Box Creator. Oh, there it is right there. Click that. You're going to want to read through the information, maybe watch the video, and then download and install the gadget. Now once you have the gadget installed, you're going to want to create a new file. Now make sure the file is big enough for your box. Make sure that you put the datum in the lower left-hand corner, and then you can go ahead and create that. Go select your box creator from the gadgets menu. Check to make sure your dimensions are fine. Add a bit of an allowance in there, and then make sure you create all the parts that you need. You're going to want to choose a tool that you have in your library. I use square tabs and a flat top. Now it created the vectors for me and two tool paths to go along with that. There's the pocket toolpath, which creates the lip of the lid. And then there's also the cutout toolpath that creates the toolpath to cut out the sides of my box. Now that you've seen where to go get the gadget and how I used it, let's take a look at the modifications that I made. The first thing I did, obviously you can see, is I added some V-carving to my box. I added in some holes here so that I could tie the top of the lid on. And then I also made two new parts of the box. These are actually going to be the centerpieces for the box, so I can cut the box into 4 different pieces. And those are easily created by creating 2 rectangles that were the right width to fit inside of my box and the right height. Then I subtracted away a rectangle and I put a T-bone fillet at the end. That way these will fit together and make a cross shape quite nicely. Now also I cut off, the ears or the points of one of these. That's so that it can go across the center of your box and avoids where your ribbon may come through your box, and that way it won't obstruct it when you're trying to thread it through. Let's have a quick look at the actual tool paths that I created. Let's tile our view so we can preview those, and we'll start off by previewing our V-carving. This is really basic V-carving, nothing special here at all, but keep in mind that you can change these to be whatever you'd like. Maybe it's ornaments from our travels, maybe it's even just going to be a Christmas memories box that you want to make. So go ahead and have fun with that. Now the first tool path here, which is called Pocket Rim of Lid, this was created by the Box Creator Gadget, and it actually just creates the lip on the inside of the box lid. And then we're going to cut the holes for the ribbons next. And then we'll create the next tool path that the Box Creator made for us, which is we'll actually cut out the parts of the box. Now the only thing I did with this tool path is I actually changed the width of the tabs so that they fit in the right spots and didn't wrap around inside of these actual little divots here. And also I changed the thickness of them so that they would survive a bit better in the plywood that I used. And then the last toolpath is actually the one we're going to run to cut the extra pieces that I made in the end. And now that worked out really quite well. Again, if you don't have the tools that I use to cut this with, so check over the toolpaths to make sure they're safe and appropriate for your machine and the tools that you have on hand. But if you don't have those, then you're going to need to probably use the other file if you happen to have 1/4 inch stock around and a 1/4 inch Endmill. If you don't have those, and you have VCarve Desktop or Cut 2D, then you will not be able to cut this, or you'll be able to cut it, but you might have to go ahead and modify the pieces once you're all done. So let's just go ahead now and take a look at how this cut on the machine, and then the actual finished box. I started out by screwing down a piece of plywood to our spoil board, and I made sure I marked where I was going to start and the space that I was going to use. The first toolpath, of course, is the VCarving, and I had chosen to make this a Christmas theme, but you could make this a box for almost anything, maybe memories or even some cherished childhood items. The VCarving did take a little bit of time to do, but it was well worth it in the end. The text cut rather well. There's only a few little spots where the top layer of the plywood popped out. Now I fixed that later on by gluing in a piece of veneer over top of the area where the piece had come off. Now this is the toolpath where the actual pocket got cut for the edge of my lid. And then we went along the toolpaths that were created with the Box Gadget. And these were really nice because it included in the ramping for the first toolpath. And thank goodness I did move my tabs, because it certainly made the cleanup much easier. In the end, I'm really quite happy with the way this cut. There was very little cleanup, and it finished off, as you'll see in the end, I think really nice. Now, I did end up having to do a little bit of extra cleanup because my tool path didn't cut quite deep enough to go all the way through my material, but that wasn't a big deal. I'm assuming that the plywood had flexed just slightly. I could easily cut these out using a basic carpet knife and cut off any extra material that happened to be around. Cleanup was made even easier by using our belt sander. I could get rid of those tabs really quick, and I could also get rid of a lot of the extra material that was left. I was really careful to make sure that I didn't take away too much off of those tabs. Of course, in the end, you always need to do a little extra sanding, so I had a sanding block, and I made sure that all my letters were fuzz-free. Now, some of the recesses didn't quite get cleaned out, so a file certainly helped to get in there where I couldn't get my sanding block in. Assembly went really, really well. It clipped together perfectly with a little bit of effort, but in the end, once you get the lid on, it does look really, really cool. Now, to finish it off, I used a simple stain Nothing too fancy. There were a few areas that I couldn't quite get into when I rubbed the stain on, so I happened to have a paintbrush around and I could fill in those extra areas with the paintbrush and some stain on it. It worked out really well because the top of the plywood that I used was a darker wood and the layers that I cut through were lighter, so it really gave a nice contrast in the end. I put a quick clear coat over the whole box and the lid. That way it kind of sealed it all up nicely and it gave it a really nice looking old finish. I used a piece of ribbon to tie the lid on with, and that made it extra easy to open up.
I really enjoyed making that, and I think that you could use this for lots of other things, not only just for Christmas ornaments, but maybe for other keepsakes. If you really enjoyed that video, could you please give it a thumbs up? If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do. And if you want to make this yourself, then please go over to your V&Co account and download the free files. Hope you have a Merry Christmas and keep your ornaments safe.